100. Hello everyone, Nick Dygan and Andrew Hart welcoming you to another episode of Going Bush.
Once again, this episode has plenty of story ideas from you, the viewer.
Here's a look at what's coming up. Coming up on today's episode of Going Bush, a bird's eye view and a smart device providing more information than ever about Australia's forests.
Is this the way of the future? How our farmers' involvement in forestry is increasing? Going back in time, the dying art of shingle splitting is kept alive in Tasmania's northwest, and how Oakdale Industries works to provide real employment for those with special needs using products sourced from our forests.
And we begin today's episode of Going Bush here at the airport, Andrew, interestingly enough, to discuss a new piece of technology that's making a bit of a name for itself in the industry.
Yes, Nick, you might think forestry all about being in the bush, but no, by going up in a plane and getting a bird's eye view, we're getting a clearer picture of what's on the ground.
One piece of technology which has revolutionised mapping. By using an aircraft, the LiDAR process is quick, accurate and provides users with more detail than ever before.
Essentially, we strap a laser to an aircraft with some navigation equipment such as high-end GPS gear, and then firing the laser at high repetition rates, we fly over the landscape at various altitudes. The laser will strike the ground and various objects on the laser's path towards the ground and give us a return, so a distance to that object, and we convert that into a 3D point, and we take the millions of points that we acquire from that flight or that sortie and turn them into a big 3D map.
That 3D map can feature the forest with or without trees, showing rivers, contours and everything else on the ground in superb detail.
It has revolutionised the way that we collect information about the landscape, because we can acquire large tracts of land very quickly and very accurately as well, with lots of uses. So it's a non-contact, fast and accurate survey method from the air.
As far as forestry is concerned, state agencies, including Forestry Tasmania and Vic Forests, are using LiDAR as a tool to find out forest volumes and tree heights.
We've taken LiDAR and we're starting to use that instead of aerial photography, because LiDAR measures things in a way that photography didn't, and it helps us to measure the lay of the land, and it helps us to measure the size and density of the forest with accuracy the like of which we've never had before.
In Victoria, Vic Forests have just completed a 20,000 hectare test and is finding LiDAR provides much more detail and accuracy than the older methods of aerial photography.
It gives you a way to evaluate broad areas, so rather than focus on measuring small areas of forest and extrapolating those numbers up, it gives you full coverage over the area you're interested in, and if you're looking at 1 or 2 million hectares of forest, it's really the only sort of way you can go.
Also of use, the degree slope of the land, important for forestry in Victoria, which doesn't have cable harvesting and must limit its harvest areas to less than 30 degrees in slope.
The blue bits are over 30 degrees where we're prohibited from harvesting, and the orange bits are sort of 25 to 30 degrees, which are kind of the marginal areas alongside that.
Okay.
The rest of it's below 25 degrees and there's no problem.
It took a while to convince people that the big costs were worthwhile, but now we're going through a 3-year program where we're capturing LiDAR over almost all the state forest in Tasmania and a lot of private land just around that as well.
LiDAR is amazing technology, but it's not just useful for looking at trees. For example, this is when the plane flew over Launceston. We can see all the houses. That's Aurora Stadium. If the football was on there, you would see Buddy Franklin rising for a big grab.
The other place that LiDAR is potentially very, very useful is in the mining industry.
Mineral Resources Tasmania have used Forestry Tasmania's LiDAR data to explore new areas which are covered by heavy forest.
Some of my colleagues have spent quite a bit of time working with the forestry data sets to do a mapping project in the northwest, and that's allowed them to track out sandstone units that they just couldn't see. It's helped them to predict what they're going to see before they go in the field, and so their mapping is more targeted. and it just leads you to the right places without having to spend a lot of time crashing around wondering where you are.
LiDAR's uses seem limitless. There's work being done on rising sea levels, flood and tsunami modelling, and planning for new development around built-up areas.
We've been able to quite confidently recognise landslide morphology, or landslides. So the output of our project, with the contribution of LiDAR, is a zoning that is based on observations and an interpretation of landscapes.
LiDAR uses laser technology from an airplane to survey the ground below. Useful in forestry mapping, as well as mining, flood modelling and city modelling applications. Forestry Tasmania and Vic Forests use LiDAR technology to map both the forest's canopy and the terrain under the vegetation, and is finding its accuracy is unprecedented.